Hello everyone. Today we're going to be solving the fourth Leetcode problem called median of two sorted arrays. I actually solved this problem about a week or two ago because my friend sent it to me. So I already know the correct approach to take. So I think today we're just gonna try to have a little fun with it, not take it too seriously. Maybe try to get it done. What am I saying? Maybe this video will go faster than the others. Let's hope so, since I already know what I'm doing. I'm also going to try to do one big reduce statement. The last time I solved it, I think I did it in a recursive function. I think we can do it with a reduce. That sounds like fun. Might get complicated, who knows? Let's give it a shot. So to describe this problem a little bit more, basically you're given two arrays of numbers. They're sorted, and basically you have to find the median as if they were merged together. So for this one here, you would pretend that you have one array, which is 1, 2, 3, and the median, of course, is 2, because that's right in the middle. The median is the middle number. And for odd-sized arrays, the middle number is just one number. But for even-sized arrays, you have to take the two middle numbers and add them and then divide them by 2. So for this one, the merged sorted array would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and the middle is the average of 2 and 3, which is 2.5. So, why do I talk so fast? Let's take it down. Slow down. One big reduce. Basically, the approach to this problem is to have two different indexes that you two different indexes that you keep track of and move through the arrays. You try to move through them in a sorted manner. So for nums1, you start at index 0. For nums2, you start at index 0, and then you try to decide which index to increase based on the number that you're on. So we have the number 1 here and the number 2 here. 1 is less than 2. So we increase our first index and we quote unquote visit this number 1 here. And then on the next loop, we compare 3 and 2, and then we visit 2. And then the next loop, we just have 3. We're at the end of nums2, so we don't have anything to compare it to, so we visit 3. But actually with this problem, we know that we've already found the median because we are halfway through the array. So one approach to this is that you find the entire length of both arrays. So you find the length of this array and add it to the length of this array. So you have 2 plus 1 is 3. You divide that by half and round down. So 3 divided by 2 is 1.5, round down to 1. So once you've visited the first index, you know that the next one is the middle of the array. For odd length arrays, it's kind of confusing to explain. Once we cut it up, it might make more sense. But for for evenly lengthed arrays, let's say this one's length of 4, you divide that by 2, and you have 2. So at index 2, you've actually gone past your center because of the way indexing works. So you actually want to stop at index 1. So 0, 1, and then since it's an even length array, you take index of 1 plus index of 2, add those together and divide by 2 to find the median. And then you don't have to visit the rest of the array. And that's how you save time. And instead of getting a complexity of a big O of n, you get this complexity of big O of log n plus n, which is a quicker complexity. It's better. Great. So let's jump into the code. I'm talking fast again. I said I wouldn't do that. I said I wouldn't, and then I did it. So the first thing that we need to start with is determining the center so that we know where our loop should stop. And by loop, I mean our reduce function. So the index that we're looking for is based on the combined length of both arrays. So we're going to say the center index is, no, let's say the total length, let's just say length, and I don't know why I'm using let here. I should say const length is nums1.length plus nums2.length. And now we have the total length of both arrays. And then to determine the center index, let's just go ahead and do it. The center is going to be, I said earlier that it was going to be the math.floor of length divided by 2. I think we might have to subtract 1. Let's think about it. So for an array of length 3, we want to bail out of our loop at index 1. So if we divide 3 by 2, we get 1.5. We round down, we get 1. So we're bailing out at index 1. For length of 4, 4 divided by 2 is 2, but we actually want to bail out at index 1, I would say, so that we don't have to backtrack, and then we just grab the next 2 numbers. So math.floor doesn't work for this one because it evenly divides. 4 divided by 2 is 2, but we want to bail out 1 earlier, so we'd have to subtract 1. But if we did that here, we would end up with the wrong answer. So we need to subtract 1 for even length arrays and not subtract 1 for odd length arrays. So to do that, we say, we'll say like, so I looked up the mathematical name for the 2 parts of a subtraction operator. And the first one is called minuend, and the second one is called the subtrahend. So we're going to use that just for fun. And that's going to be length remainder, splat modulo 2 is 0. So if length divided by 2, if length is even, basically we do modulo 2. So the remainder when dividing by 2 is equal to 0, then it's an even number. And if it is even, we want to subtract 1. And if it's not an even number, we want to subtract 0. So now our center index is math.floor of length over 2 minus our subtrahend, which is either 1 or 0, based on the length of the array, which is exactly what we want. What is going on with this formatting? Great. So now that we have the center, the goal in mind is to start our reduce function and iterate our 2 indices up until we have reached the center. So the addition of both of our separate indices should be equal to the center index that we're looking for. And that's when we bail out of our looping or our reducing, and we actually return a value. This may not work with reduce now that I think about it, but we're going to go for it anyway. I'm cursing in my videos. Good grief. So I'm not going to assign this anything. We're just going to start writing the code and see what comes up. So what we're reducing is, what are we reducing? Complication. I guess we can just reduce one of the arrays passed in, but I don't think it's going to work very well. Because if we get to the end of one of them, our reduce is going to stop even though we're not done yet, which kind of ruins how I wanted the reduce to return. Because I wanted the reduce just give back the right answer, which would be super cool. But now, I have to think about this for a second. Okay, I think I know exactly what we can reduce on, and that's going to be a list of numbers, aka the indices that we need up until the center index. So that's going to look something like this. So we say new array of center index. So if center is 2, then we're going to create a new array with length of 2 here, and we're going to expand it into a actual array. I'm forgetting why this notation is necessary. Hold on a second. This notation is a trick to just actually create an array. I think if you just do new array, you get a weird object with nothing at the indices, like literally nothing, not even undefined, which is super weird. So if you expand the array, you get an actual array object that you want, and then we could map it and like give it numbers that we want. But we actually just want the indices, which is provided to us by reduce already. So I think we're just going to skip out on any of that complicated stuff. I'm probably not making any sense here, but let's just write the code, and then I think it'll make more sense after that. So what we're reducing on is numbers. But for this example, it's going to be undefined every single time because of the way I wrote it right here. So we're actually just going to ignore this parameter. And then our return value is going to be, I want to say a set of indices. So we're going to do something fun here. We could do two different things. We could return an object with two different keys, or we can just return an array of size 2 every time, and that's what I'm going to decide to do. So we're going to call this, I guess, index 1 and index 2, as much as I don't like those things, but we're going to say index 1 and index 2. So index 1, index 2, which are going to be relative to nums1 and nums2. And then our index, which is a separate index that is going to be from 0 until center. So this function is going to be called with I values 0, 1, 2, 3, all the way up until the center index value. So if center is 2, then this function is going to be called twice, I believe, once at index 0, once at index 1, and then that is exactly when we want to stop. So great. And then the value that we pass in is going to be 0, 0, because those are the starting indexes. So now we have our reduce set up, and when it returns, it's going to return a set of indices. So we're going to capture those, and again, we're going to call them index 1 and index 2. Oh man, I am having fun already. This upsets me. What do I do about it? What do I do about this awful notation? Let's do that. Maybe I should not include this in the video. Oh no. Right, this? That doesn't... This is awful. Wait. What if we do that? And do this. And this. This notation is even better. This is super confusing. But I'm having fun, so that's what matters. Okay, so we're reducing an array of indices, and we're returning them two sets of indices that are eventually going to reveal the final values that we want after the reduce. We'll get to that in a second. So inside the reduce, what we need to do is slowly walk each index forward based on which number is lower. So we're going to say num1 is equal to nums1 at index 1. Const num2 is equal to nums2 at index 2. So now what we say is which one's bigger, and then that's the index that we're going to walk forward. So how can we do that? I don't want to... I think we have to do this in two different operations, which is a big bummer, but we will get over it. So if num1 is greater than num2, then we walk num1 forward. So basically, we're just going to say, how do I want to do this? Because I want to return eventually two arrays. I think I'm forgetting something here, but let's say return num1 plus plus num2. And then otherwise, we don't need an else because this is the only other case. Num1, num2 plus plus. Great. So in this function, we walk each index forward based on which number is bigger. And this is actually wrong. This should be if num1 is less than num2, then we walk num1 forward. And that's and then we return those indices, and then reduce is called again, and then we decide which index to walk forward again. And then when we get to the end of this reduce, how certain am I that we are at a good set of indices? I'm not entirely sure. Doing this sort of complicated. I mean, I like this reduce as is, but I have a bad feeling we're going to have to change it. It's too nice. So now we have these two indices, or we think we have these two indices that represent the center of our sorted array. So the task at hand now is, if it's an odd length array, once you combine them, if it's odd, then the index that we're on currently, we just take that number and we return it, and that's it. And if it's an even length array, then we take the number we're on currently and the next one, and then we return that number, and that's our answer. And while I was explaining this, I just realized a problem, which is I don't know which index was bumped most recently. So when we return here, I don't know which number we just walked to, and that is a problem because once I get out here, I don't know which array to pull from. Do I pull from nums1 or do I pull from nums2? And maybe there's a way to determine that. Is there a way? One of them should be bigger than the other. Whichever one's bigger. Is that going to work? Whichever one's bigger is the one I pull from? And then do I have to walk forward again? If I have just walked either index forward, then the one I walked forward most recently must be the bigger one, or they're the same size, and it doesn't matter. So I think for odd index arrays, we have our answer. We just return whichever one's bigger. And then for even indexed arrays, we can apply the same strategy, which we know which one we just walked to by which one's bigger. And then we still have to compare, we still have to find the next one to walk. We still have to find the next number, which means we do have to do one more iteration of walking. Not a big deal. Not a big deal. Is that true? How hard is it going to be to do one more iteration of walking? I'm not sure. Let's figure this out. So let's make another variable to make it easier for us later on. So we're going to say length is even, or is even lengthed. It's going to be length modulo 2 is equal to 0. That is 4 equal signs. And here we can simplify this, say is even lengthed. Great. And then down here, if is even, actually we want to say if not is even length, then we just return nums1 of index 1 greater than nums2 index 2. If so, we return nums1 index 1, else nums2 index 2. And then we also simplify this just a hair. Great. I believe this gives us an answer, and that bails out of the function right there. So the only thing left to do is handle an odd length, an even length array. And when I say array, I mean combination of nums1 and nums2 if their total length is even. So to handle that, we need to walk one more time. So I'm thinking I did this reduce function wrong. Because in order to walk, you want to check the next index. You don't want to check the current one. You want to check the next one, right? Let's go back to this reduce function and see what I was thinking. So if you start with index 0, you start with I is 0, which apparently I don't actually care about. I might get rid of this. If you start with the 0th index, do I have to start with not 0, 0? Do I need to start with like undefined, undefined? They cannot both be empty, but one of them can be empty. I think I have to start with undefined, undefined, which means on our 0th index here, I need to know which one to visit. And I think we need to add 1. But we could do -1 and use that as a flag instead, because I don't want to deal with like all this checking. I want to do checking only once for undefined or for a bad flag. So here, we want to say index +1 or index 2 + 1 or index 1 + 1. So now we choose to go from -1 to 0 on our first iteration based on which one's 0th index is smaller. So for example, number 1 is smaller, so nums 1 or index 1 would become 0, and index 2 would stay -1. And then the next loop through, we would add 0 + 1 and compare 3 to -1 + 1, which is 0. So we compare 3 to 2, and then we set this one at 0. And then ideally we bail and just return it because 2 is bigger than 1. I think this is right. This might be better than my last solution, which would be really amazing. So now all we need to do is walk forward one more time. And to do that, we could copy the code from inside the reduce, but that sounds super boring. And what we're going to do is, let's actually determine this number outside before the if statement, which number we want to turn, which one we just visited. So we're going to say center value is nums1, index 1. Maybe I should have called these I1. Nums2, index 2, nums1, index 1, nums2, index 2. Good grief. Delete all this. Center value. Because we're going to reuse that center value in just a second. So if nums1, index 1 is bigger than nums2, index 2, then we return nums2, 1. I don't have a 1 there. Nums1, index 1. Great. So now we have our center value. If we're even length, or if we're not even length, so we're odd length, then we just return the center value. If we're even length, then we want to take the center value and add it to the next one. So next value is going to be which one do we walk forward? And that's basically, we're going to use a lot of ternaries here. We're having fun. If nums1, index 1 + 1 is bigger than nums2, index 2 + 1, then let's put this on a new line because we're going to know it. We need it, and we know we need it. So our next value is going to be nums1, index 1 + 1. All of this 1ing and 2ing is a lot of work. Nums2, index 2 + 1. Great, so now our next value on an even length array is going to be whichever one is bigger after checking, after walking each index forward one, checking which one's bigger between the two arrays, is what this statement is saying. It's hard to explain really concisely. But yeah, if index 1 plus 1, so if the next index of nums1 is bigger than the next index of nums2, then we return the next index of nums1. Otherwise, we return the next index of nums2. I feel like there's probably a more concise way to code this, but let's double back on that in just a second, because I think we're about to have our answer, which is return center value plus next value divided by 2, except division happens first. So we need to group those, and then bam, I will be so shocked if this works. So shocked. Okay, that's not even fair. Not even fair. What's going on? Cannot be property iterator of undefined. I think it doesn't like my array. It's a big bummer. I wonder why that is. Why don't you like my array? So I actually got our ordering wrong for these parameters. These two, they should be here, and the parameter that we're ignoring is the second one. We're also going to ignore this I. We don't care about it. In fact, we only care about modifying the answer on every loop. So we're going to do it like this. Basically, on a reduce, the function that you give it, the first parameter, or the first argument to that function is the quote-unquote accumulator, which is the end result that you're changing every single loop, or every single iteration of that function, every single call of that function. And the second parameter, the one that would normally go here, is the value that you're reducing over. So it'd be an individual value of the array that you called reduce on. But since we don't actually care about those values, we're going to ignore it. So really, and the third parameter would be the index of the reduce that you're on. But we don't care about that one either. We just care about this. Basically, this is the equivalent of calling doing a for loop and changing this array every time. But reduces are more fun and stuff. So we did that. So moving on. Let's run this again. Cool. That's correct. This should be index 1. Uh-oh, backspace not working. Index 1 and index 2. Same thing here. I don't know how I got that wrong. Whoops. I also messed up formatting here. What happened here? They used to fit and now they don't. Great. Let's try it again. Okay, not a number. Nice. Super nice. Okay. So, why did we output not a number? Our example is odd length, so we should be, oh my goodness. We should be returning there. I just put the value there and thought I'd return. This isn't Ruby. Ruby doesn't do that either. Great, now we're getting undefined, so that's different, new at least. So we're getting undefined, woohoo, from here. Out of this assignment, we're somehow getting undefined. So either nums1 index 1 is undefined or nums2 index 2 is undefined. So I would guess that we are left with a -1 at some point. Okay, so do I know what's going on here? I don't necessarily know what's going on here. I probably don't know what's going on here. Let's go ahead and do some console logging. Just let's debug this really quick. So what I'm curious to know is what is index 1 and what is index 2? -1 and -1. That's funny. I'm going to guess that's because our center was possibly 0. It shouldn't have been. It should be 1. Yeah, that is wrong still. Let's go ahead and console log. Whoops. Let's console log center here. I still think we're wrong, even if it's even if our center is. Why did I just put 1 there? That's going to skew the results. Okay, so I think center is going to be 0 or 1. It's supposed to be 1, I think. Yeah, correct. And so what happens here is this will run a single time, or it should have, but I think it ran 0 times, which, because both these are -1, one of them, oh my goodness. Wait. Would that have any effect? -2. No, that shouldn't have mattered. That should not have mattered. Yeah, okay, great. So I don't think either of these return statements are being hit in this function because we should have gone from -1 to 0 on one of them. And clearly that's not happening. So interesting. And wait, oh no. No, hold on. Okay, I don't think we're getting inside this reduce, even though our array should be length of 1. Our new array here, what I mean, should be length of 1. So reduce should run at least once, but I don't think it is. I'm going to do some quick checks in some JavaScript running on the side. I feel like I've lost my mind. I don't think I knew this, but plus plus in JavaScript returns a different value. It returns the previous value. So I just wanted to jump in here and roast myself before anyone else has the opportunity to. I realize that the increment operator is working as it's supposed to, and that it is not supposed to actually increment the value of the variable until the next line. I don't know what I was thinking. Honestly, I just forgot how it worked, and that happens. That's okay. It's important to remember. That's okay. And yeah, that's all I got to say about it. Enjoy me forgetting how to be a programmer. So, for example, we're going to say x is equal to 5. We're going to say y is equal to x plus plus. If we print these out here, and I'm not going to no, I'll demonstrate it. We're going to console log x, and we're going to console log y, and I want you to guess for me what the value of x is going to be and what the value of y is going to be. And then I'm going to run this, and you're going to see that it's bonkers. Okay, other than the fact that I did this after the return, just ignore that part. Just watch this. Okay, check this out. X is 6 because plus plus modifies the number in place. Like it modifies the variable, but it doesn't return the value. It returns a different value. What? I've been coding for almost 5 years. Have I forgotten? That is nuts. So That's why we're having problems. Are other languages like this? That seems just wild. So basically, what you do here is +1. That's real clever. Wow, I'm never using plus plus again. And bang, get rid of that. Boom, get rid of that. Let's run this again. I'm still not sure we're right here. There is an edge case that we're not catching that I'll get back to in a second. Okay, we're still wrong. Cool. Cool. I should have left those console logs here. I'm gonna magic them right back in real quick. Great, so index 1 is 0. Fantastic. And then the edge case that I just mentioned earlier is the one that we're not handling. So, and is the one that's causing the problem. Basically, we're not handling what happens when one of these is still -1. How are we going to deal with that? So basically, if index 1 is -1 or if index 2 is -1, we just want to straight up choose the other value, which also, this is wrong. Okay, two separate problems here. One is that we need to handle index 1 or index 2 being the -1 here. The other is that we did not do this reduce enough times. So for this example, our reduce should have ran twice because we want to end on the second index, aka index 1. The center here is the center index, which means we need to run an additional time just once more through this loop, because if we run through it once, we are getting index 0, but the center is index 1, so we want to go up until and including that index before returning. So we're just going to add 1 there. I think that solves that problem. This also fixes the example, but we do need to handle for the submission probably one of the arrays being empty and leaving us with index -1. So to solve that, I could just do 0 because I know that they're sorted, and I don't know if 0 is a valid value or not. It doesn't say. I could do like math.minimum integer or something like that. Let's go ahead and say num1 is nums1 index 1 or 0. Same for num2. And if this causes problems in the submission, we'll just change it to be math.minimum integer or whatever it is. Bang. Whoops. Bang. Move those in line. Now, let's see if we have something. All right, test code worked. Will the submission work? No. Output not a number. How come? How come we output not a number? Not a number. How could we have even... So, okay, the only way we could have gotten not a number was that we ended up here. And we divided 0 by 2. That is exactly what we did. And makes sense because all the inputs are 0. One sec. I'm gonna cheat. Okay, so we're gonna do something a little bit tricky just to do this easy way, which is we're gonna say the sum of center value and next value is, well, center value plus next value. And if it's 0, sorry, you know what? Let me just code this up. We're gonna do sum and sum divided by 2. So what's happening here is that if sum is 0, it's going to be falsy, or we're not going to go on the other side of this and it's going to return 0 because that's what the double and operator does In JavaScript, if the first value is falsy, it just returns that value. And if it's not falsy, like it's 1, then we will divide 1 by 2 and we'll have a good answer. They might be able to give us some edge case that breaks this, but we're going to rely on them not and see what happens. Sick. How did that happen? I don't even believe it. I don't believe it. Just to show that this works. Okay, so our sum is actually not a number. Cool. I was totally wrong. And somehow either our center value or our next value is not a number. And honestly, I don't know how that happened, because we're never altering the values in any way that could cause it to be not a number. I mean, obviously I'm wrong, but that's what I'm thinking. So how did we get in that situation? I'm just staring at this code. The way to really move forward is to continue like doing console logging, because that is the tool that we have at our disposal. And when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. When you have a console log, everything looks like a standard output. I don't know. Is that a good joke? Probably not. We're gonna log num1 and num2 here, because I'm not immediately thinking of the answer. Of course, these have to be after num1 and num2 are defined. No problem. We're gonna keep submitting here. I really don't think this is how you're supposed to treat Leetcode, but we're doing it. So, are you joking? Hold the phone. Wait. Oh no. Oh dear. Okay. I have issues. Okay, so what's happening here is I believe we're getting on the second half of this OR statement, and we're getting 0. One way to fix this is to replace these values with num1 and num2, but I don't actually want to do that because we shouldn't have to. Especially for this example. I think something else is going totally wrong, which is that these are still -1 by the time we get out here, which super incorrect. Let's double check that assumption. Okay, I was right, and that's fine that I was right. But so we have the right combination of greater thans to cause problems, is what's going on here. So to run this through, what I think is happening is that, okay, we're getting here. Whoops, daisy. We're getting out here, and our index 1 and index 2 look like -1 and 1, which is totally fine because all these values are the same. But instead of like walking them both evenly, we're always walking index 2 because num1 is not strictly less than num2. If I did less than equals here, we would only walk index 1 forward. We'd be in the exact same situation. But then we come down here and we do an OR with 0, which for this problem works. Let's skip over that. And then we get down here and we say is num1 greater than num2? And we are looking at 0 and 0. So we're going to get false. And then we're going to say nums1 of index 1 is our center value then. However, index 1 is the one that we're explicitly not walking when they're the same value. When they're less than, we walk index 1. But if index 1 and index 2 are the same value, if they hold the same value and they're equivalent arrays, then we choose to walk index 1 here. Wait. No. Right. We choose to walk index 2 if they're the same because they're not, and num1 is not strictly less than num2. So what that means is that we can either replace these with the values num1 and num2, and by these I mean instead of indexing onto nums1, we've already done that up here and assigned them to the values num1 and num2. We can just put those there, which will fix this answer, but I'm worried it's going to cause problems later on. And is there a better way to address this issue is the question. So we're not doing our check for whether our index 1 and index 2 is negative. It's not a great check because we're just doing an OR with 0. We could be more explicit. If they ever introduce negative numbers, I think this is going to be a problem. I can't think off the top of my head if there will ever be a problem otherwise. I think it only matters if they introduce negative numbers. Or no, here's the problem. Let's say they're all 1. And then, so instead of all being 0, if they were all 1, we'd be in the same scenario of index 1 being negative 1, index 2 being 1. And then we would say, is num1 bigger than num2? So is, woohoo, that's a mistake. Hold on a minute. Is that the problem? So that should be nums2 of index 2. So if num1 is bigger than num2, which for our example, index 1 would be negative 1. So we're going to say is 0 bigger than num2, which would actually be index 1 of the second one, which is both 1s. We're pretending they're both 1s, which would be 1. So it would be false. And then we would explicitly get into here nums2 of index 2, which would be 1. And we would have the right answer. So I think we're actually okay. The only problem that we're left exposed to right now, I think, is having an array of negative values. But we're going to submit and see if they actually give us that problem or not. Okay, we're still returning not a number. So how come? Whoops. So our center value, we know at this point that num1, we know that num1 and num2 are 0, so center value is 0. They're not even length, so we're getting 0. Next value, we try to walk them both forward by 1, but here's the problem. Same exact problem here is when we walk this one forward by 1, we're actually going past the end of the array. And once we do that, we're getting undefined, which is always false. When you put undefined in a comparison operator like this, it's going to be false. And then we're going to end up with a bad value here. And that's the end of it. I still don't get why we're getting not a number. I feel like we should be getting undefined. I guess when we do addition with undefined, say something plus undefined, we're getting not a number. That makes sense to me. So to solve this, we need to do the same thing. We need to do an OR with 0. We're just going to do it in place because we're lazy. And this is probably super confusing. Probably. And it should be rewritten. Oh, that's fantastic. Exact same problem. Oh my. We're just gonna do this, get it out of the way. I'm tired of this problem. To be blunt. We'll refactor in just a second once we get through some of their inputs that they're going to give us. Cool. So we can't just do this, is my guess. We can't just do an OR with 0. I don't see why. This one should have been odd lengthed, which means we should be returning the center value, and we should be returning whichever one's bigger. And 0 should not be bigger than 2. So we should have gotten the right answer here, I would think. Unless Oh, you know what? We never went, they both start at -1 because we're not handling a length being 1 exactly. The center of length being 1 is 0, I think. So let's see what's actually happening. So for nums1.length plus num2.length is 1 plus 0 is 0. Is even length is going to be false. The subtrahend is going to be 0. And then the center is going to be length divided by 2. So 1 divided by 2 is 0.5. And the floor of that is 0. Minus 0 is 0. So our new array is going to be 0 plus 1. It's going to be 1 in size. So it is going to run through once, I think. So let's go ahead and check ourselves. I should have just left all of these here, to be honest. Okay, both 0, which is wrong. So I'm curious what the indexes are. Okay, so this is correct. Uh-oh. Wait a minute. Index 2 is 0. So down here, num2, index 0, should be... Wait, index 2? Index 1 should be 0. Because... Oh... So exact same problem up here. We need to substitute these with 0 if they don't have a value. So -1 plus 0 is going to be the 0th index, but this one does not have a 0th index. It has nothing in it at all, the second array. So we're just going to say it's 0. There's a lot of ORing with 0 in here. We're not going to delete the console logs this time. We're just going to run it. Okay, so different problem. This time it's the second array. It has something in the first array that doesn't. Index 1, 0. Okay, so that's different. So why did our index 1 should be -1 and our index 2 should be 0? So what's happening here is we get -1 plus 1 is 0, so we get the 0th index of nums1, which is undefined, or 0, so num1 should be assigned to 0. Num2 should be assigned to the 0th index of array 2, which is 1, or 0, which should return 1. So if num1 is less than num2, which is, oh no, which is correct, yeah, okay. So for this one, we actually want to assume that if we found nothing, or if we're at the last index, then we want to stop walking that one. So we don't want to OR with 0, we want to OR with like the maximum integer, because we don't want to walk that one anymore. Which I think is something like, 1 second, oh no, it's gonna break on me. I want to say it's like number.max safe integer. Okay, apparently max safe integer is right. That's funny. Cool. Oh no, they gave us negative numbers. Womp womp. So we can't do an OR with 0 here. We basically, what we could do is minimum safe integer. Apparently min safe integer is a value, so we're going to use that. I should write a function. I want to write a function because I am so tired of this. So outside of here, we're going to say, like, substitute if not found this number. So what are we going to call it? Like, you could say default. Let's say like index with default. We're going to take the array, we're going to take the index, and we're going to take the default value that we want. Apparently we can't call it default because that's a keyword, so we'll call it def, And then in here, we're going to say return array of index or default. And then, actually, I don't want to do that. We're going to say index, because I don't want to pass in max safe integer. I want it to handle that for me too. So we're going to say index with, say index or max integer. Index or max is what we're going to say. So we'll say array index or, oops, number.max safe integer index or min. Same thing here, just return this into min safe integer. So here we're going to say num1 is equal to num, or index or max nums1 index1 plus 1. And then num2 is index or max nums2 index2 plus 1. Let's fix this other one really quick. So we're going to index on nums2 of index2 plus 1 or return the maximum integer. And then down here, this does not really save much space, which is like bumming me out. I wanted this to be better. I really wanted this to be better. This isn't that bad. What I don't like, I don't even want to use this function anymore that I just wrote. What I'm upset about is this part here. It's going to say next nums1. See this part? This just, I don't like this. I believe we're going to use max here. This is just too much duplicate coding. Leave that one alone. And then next value is equal to next nums1 greater than next. Why do I call it num? It should be num1 greater than next num2 next num1. No, less than. We did a lot of things wrong here. Next num1 less than next num2, next num1, or next num2. And we'll delete that. Instead of nums here, it should be num. I want that space back. Okay. I'm going to convert these two back as well. Okay, so here we go again. Cool. What did I do wrong? Index is not defined. That's correct. Index 1, index 2. Okay. So now we are exiting the array with also, again, an incorrect index 2. So we should be exiting the array. No, that's correct. This is how we should be exiting the array. We had just visited 2, and then we want to add 2 and 3. And then our output's 1.5, which is a, whoa, okay. Why are we printing out num2? That's probably fine. And then sum 3. Oh, wait a second. Yeah. 3 divided by 2 is 1.5. But the expected output is 2.5. I agree. The expected output is right. And our sum is 3. So it seems like we're adding 1 and 2 instead of adding 2 and 3. This is confusing things. Okay. So how come we didn't move up 1? This might be why. That's probably why. I had nums1 instead of nums2 there. So is everything else correct? So if next num1 is less than next num2, then we visit next num1, which I would say we're not going to visit next num1 because it's going to be the maximum safe integer. So we're going to visit next num2, and then bada bing, bada boom, we'll get the right answer. Awesome. So this one, we gave out 12.5, and the expected is 10.5. So, okay. I ran into all these problems the first time, and I still didn't remember to fix them this time. I thought it was going to be faster. I was wrong. So this should not be, whoa, look at that. NX2 right here should not be -1. When we exit this reduce, because we definitely should have visited this 0 at some point, and that did not happen. So how come we never visited that 0? We also should have visited the 6 at one point. We should have fully traversed this by the time we're at the center. So what's going on there? Let's take a peek at our reduce function and see if anything is giving back bad vibes. So we're never incrementing index 2, so that means we never make it to the second return. So we're always ending up with num1 is less than num2. Which shocks me because the very first time num1 should not be less than num2. Unless num2 is always max safe integer. Boom! That's exactly what's happening. Num2 is always max safe integer because 0 is falsy. So we can't just do a simple OR here because this fails for when the left-hand side is 0. Because 0 is a valid value. We're only checking for undefined. We only want to return. Gosh darn. Okay. It's equal to undefined. Oh man. I don't like this. This is awful. So now is when we want to actually implement our function that does these checks for us. So what I want is to try to grab the next number off of this array. But if it's undefined, give me the max safe integer. So I guess we're going to go ahead and use these functions. What's really cool is I already have them in place. So what we're going to do is give ourselves a little more space here and say if array of index is equal to undefined, then number.max safe integer, otherwise array of index. And then let's go ahead and copy this, paste it over this one, call it index or min, and return min safe integer. Missing an R here. Okay, good deal. So now we're going to use our new functions. num1 is equal to index or max of nums1 index 1 plus 1. Same thing here with num2. It's nums index 2. Great. I imagine we're going to have to implement this later on too. My editor is telling me why is my syntax highlighting different? Something's wrong. What is it? What's wrong? I don't know what it is. Doesn't seem like anything. Okay. I'm going to guess the exact same problem here, kind of. Is it necessary to change these out for index or min? Yeah, probably, because this is how we determine our center value. And if we have negative numbers, it does seem like it. Seems like I'm not sure, but I'm going to assume that we do. nums1, index 1, index or min, nums2, index 2. Forgot an s, boom. And then same thing here. Definitely same thing here, because we're going to run the same problem as in the loop. Nums1, index 1, and index for max here. Nums2, index 2. I am not typing nums versus num correctly, not once. Which is why you really shouldn't name things num and nums. Terrible idea, to be honest. Okay, so we do have a syntax error. Oh, or, what are you doing there? You should be a colon. Okay, so now we're back to a submission that we were succeeding on, and we're now failing on. Interesting. When we exit it, this is correct. That seems fine. Sum is 4. Sum is 4. What did we break? I think this is supposed to be +1, isn't it? Whoa, we did it. Wow, and we did terrible. That's probably because we're using reduce function unnecessarily, but we did it, and it's every bit as ugly as I didn't want it to be. Ultimately, that's okay. There are some refactors here, but the good news is we did what we intended, which is using a reduce function. So that's a win. Unfortunately, there's just so many edge cases to catch that this just got really ugly. Oh, that was much better for time and speed. Oh, that's because we got rid of console logs. That makes a big difference. That's fine. Okay, so I sat here and I decided I wanted to do some refactoring. The primary problem that I'm seeing is I think we could handle our edge cases better, and I kind of want to do that. I may or may not include this in the video. Who knows? Basically, in this reduce function, we're just going to do a couple of different checks. We're going to say if our index 1 is undefined, so if not index 1, oh my goodness, then we can just straight up return index 1, index 2. This is not correct. 1 second. So we're going to start with undefined. And I think that's what I want. I think I want to start with undefined. No. Hold up. I want to be able to short circuit out of this. I want to say, there's one thing I want to handle, which is overreaching. So that is if index 1 plus 1 is greater than or is equal to num1's dot length, then we can just straight up decide to increment index 2. Same thing, if index 2 plus 1 is equal to num's 2 dot length, then we just choose to increment index 1. It's gonna index 2 stays the same. So that handles overreaching or reaching the end of one array. The other problem is the beginning of the arrays, and how do we handle that? So what we wanted to do was nums1 of index 1 plus 1. I forgot an equal sign. And num2 was going to be nums2 index 2 plus 1. and this is undefined. So right here, if we are not at, we're starting with undefined, and if either of our index is undefined, we just substitute that with 0, and then we add 1 to it. No. Hold up. We substitute with -1. No, there's, you know what? Let's do this the more explicit way. If index 1 is undefined, then 0 else index 1 plus 1. We have space here to do it, so we're going to do it. Index 2 equal to undefined 0, index 2 plus 1. I'm going to use triple equals. It really doesn't matter here. Great. So if index 2 is undefined, if either of them are undefined, then we're going to get 0. Otherwise, we increment the indexes. And this really isn't any shorter than our previous solution, but it's more explicit, and I don't have to call out other function. I can at least delete the other two functions. I don't know if this is more readable. Quite possibly not, to be honest. And then down here, same thing. We need to be able to handle underreaching and overreaching. So if index 1 is undefined, then our center value is simply the other one, from whichever one is undefined. Do I like this better? Am I going to include this? Am I just going to delete all this video footage? Bum. I don't know, sometimes you have to play with code to see if you like the results or not. So far, I'm really on the fence with the changes we've made. Really on the fence. Doesn't feel super amazing. So we want center value to be whichever one is either defined or bigger. So I wonder if we can get really clever and say num1 or num2 or num1. Am I out of my mind right now? So we want to return whichever one's max and whichever one is defined. So if num1 is defined, and I'm sorry, I'm doing something in my head that I'm not actually showing in code, which is I'm assigning num1 to be nums1 of index 1, except that index 1 might be undefined. So if we try to get undefined out of an array, I'm not sure what happens. It's probably undefined. Yeah, that's right. So same thing here. Num2 is nums2 index 2. Why can't I write s? Great. Again, so instead of that function of index or minimum, we get these two out, and then we say, oh, if num1 is undefined, then we're always going to get num2 here, because this is going to be num2, and this is going to be num2, and the max of the same number is that same number. So whichever one is undefined, if one of them is undefined, we're going to get the other number. And if one of them is bigger than the other one, then we're going to get the one that's bigger. So that's a clever trick that we just discovered. I came up with this just now. No one else has ever come up with this trick, I'm sure. I wonder if we can apply this trick up here as well to make this a little bit more concise. So for this example, what are we looking for? We're looking to increment the index based on which number is smaller. But that's challenging because we're looking at the values, but we're changing the indexes. So for the overreaching part, no, let's handle underreaching. Underreaching, if we're starting with undefined, then we would get undefined out, but then we still want to increment whichever one is smaller. And if index 1 is assigned to undefined, or index 2 is assigned to undefined, we're going to have problems there. We can't just assign them that way. Can we do... We can't use an OR statement here. Maybe I can switch this back to -1. Can I switch this back to -1 and just solve this problem? Num1, index 1, so it's -1. Let's say the first trip, we want it to be 0. -1 is truthy, so we can't use an OR there. So we say index 1 plus 1. If it's -1, we're going to get 0. I don't know what I'm forgetting. What am I forgetting? If I just do this, what's different here? I don't know. If we start with -1 here, how does that affect our output? For this one, if we get a -1 here, that's still undefined. Not a problem. Great, even. So I think that's fine. Oh, careful. And this one, these two, can I simplify this at all? Can I simplify overreaching? How would I possibly do that? I don't know, maybe this is okay. Can we apply the math.min trick here? I don't think we can because we weren't able to in the reduce function either. I'm going to say next one is nums1 index 1 plus 1. What's wrong with just doing that? Why do we have to do max? If index 1 is -1, that's fine. Wait. If it's undefined, then we're going to get not a number. Because we'll add it to 1. That's going to be 0. What am I saying? If the next one is -1, then we'll get 0. And then we'll have a number, which is the correct thing to do. How do we get undefined? How does that ever become undefined? If we're overreaching? Yeah, if we're overreaching. Yeah, we're not handling the overreaching part here. If we try to change it to this definition. So that requires more code. The next best option is to define a function that, it's basically this here, that just finds the next one. Say find next is basically all of this. Let's fix that one more time. So we're going to delete these. We're decidedly deleting those. And find next is going to require the, I believe the arrays and the indexes. Actually, we're going to define this inside of our function so that we can reference nums1 and nums2. And this just needs index 1 and index 2. And then, yeah, great. This could even take an array, a single array as a parameter instead of two separate parameters. And then we have a really easy substitute for this. I would love to pass this directly into the reduce. And I think I can. So that's going to shorten this a bunch. And then, so this find next, it takes two indices. And if it overreaches, then it increments the other index. And if it's starting at 0, it handles that. It handles the normal case, the happy path case. Great. So instead of all this, I'm pretty sure I can just do return find next, but we're going to simplify this even more in just a second once we prove that it works. And then same thing here. We're going to say const, hold on. Next index 1, next index 2. I don't love this, but find next index 1, index 2. I prefer to return the value, but wait. Yeah, and then we have to do this nonsense because we don't know which one was incremented. Oh dear. Oh dear. So, since we don't know which one's incremented, we have to figure it out all on our own. So next one is nums1, next index 1, next 12? I don't think so. Next 2 is nums2, next index 2, and then next value is math.max next one, or next 2, or next 1. So using the exact same trick there, get rid of all this, and then same logic there. And I want to see this is going to work. I don't know if that's true or not. Cool. Other than syntax errors, num1 not defined. Where are we? Line 13. Num1 not defined. Right. That's because this is nums. Oh no. All of this again. All of this all over again. Hope this isn't boring. Let's bring back all of the console logs. Undefined 0. That's fine. Is it true? Is it really fine? So this should give us 0. Next 1 and next 2 are both 0. If both next 1 and next 2 are 0, then we should be getting, what's our center value? Not a number. Even though num1 is undefined, num2 is 0, and then we say undefined or 0 should be 0, num2, 0 or undefined. What is math.max? Oh no. JavaScript is truly the dumbest. I'm upset right now. So math.max, if one of them is undefined, it returns not a number. Why? Just return the number. Return the thing. Okay? Okay? Math.max. So the problem is that when num2 is 0, like it is in this example, it's falsy and it's going over here and it's returning undefined. And that's breaking math.max. This was such a good trick. This was so clever. So clever. How did this mess up? So how can we clever even harder is the question. Without using math dot or number dot min safe integer, I want to not do that. Okay, maybe I have something. Okay, I don't have anything. I can't think of anything better. Sad to say, but I couldn't think of anything. Which means this is what we have. And that's a big bummer. But I have an idea how to make this shorter in the future. And you might watch me make the same mistakes twice. Value not a number. Cool. Why am I making the exact same mistakes? I almost guarantee it. But I can't remember. Why. Runs undefined. Not possible. Okay, num2 is undefined. I just said that's not. Oh, I said math. It's number. Right, and then that's a 0 thing. So there's the same mistakes. I'm making the same mistakes. And the way to solve that was to check explicitly for undefined, and then you had to. And then, oh, good grief. Why? Why is this the worst? So I write a new function called const find visited. It's going to take, I believe, the same parameters. And what it's going to do is everything here, everything that it was doing before, and then some. So here I say if is undefined, then we want to return the minimum safe integer, otherwise nums1, index1. We could maybe do this in one line, but I'm not sure the solution's any better than the last. I'm not sure it's any shorter. I'm not sure it's any more clear. Ultimately, big failure. So far, who knows? Maybe our attitude will change. Don't count on it. Center value is find visited, index1, index2. Same thing here. Next value is find visited, index1, index2. So I like that things are more consistent now, and we're not having to do a manual walking, sort of. You can just call find next and find visited. I like that. That's fine. That's just gonna work, right? Let's not put logs in the function. Yeah, totally gonna work. So yeah, we didn't return here, so that's something. I should be running the test case and not the submission. Same problem here, or what? Okay, we're not using next index1. It's actually really interesting here is we can just call find next. find visited, find next, index 1, index 2. I should... Hey, look at that. Pretty slow. Okay, is there anything else we can do to make this shorter, more concise? So previously, all our code was almost visible on one screen, and now it's not. So we got a bit longer. I think it's primarily because of this. What would I like to see here? What's happening? If this is undefined, that happens because we are either... This happens because we're underreaching or overreaching, or is it only one? So when we're finding visited, we have two indices. One could be, I think, no, we're only worried about underreaching here. So we're only worried about index 1 being -1 and index 2 being -1. So is there anything we can do with that information? I think so. If index 1 less than 0, we're actually returning the value, right? So I think we return nums2 index 2. Same thing, if index 2 is less than 0, we return nums1 index 1. And then now we don't have to worry about underreaching. By that I mean trying to get a value at index -1. So we can just say nums1 index 1 and nums2 index 2 here. Delete all of this. Getting close to that one screen situation. Okay, our code's still working. Kind of slow. We don't have any console logs. We're just slow. I don't mind this. This could be smaller. I think we can just directly pass in find next here. -1, -1. All fits on one line. But, I mean, this might be more than 80 characters, which is usually my stopping point, but I don't know what 80 characters is in this editor, so I'm not going to worry about it. Ooh, wow, look at that. I'm kind of surprised I got so much faster. Okay, let's not celebrate too hard. This isn't so bad. I'm liking this better than the solution we had before. I'm liking this better than the solution I did a long time ago. We do have to define is even length. We do have to define... We could get rid of the subtrahend by saying number of is even length. So if is even length is true, then it's going to be 1. So converting a Boolean to a number by wrapping it in this number call is going to turn true into 1 and false into 0, which is exactly what we're doing here. So that gets rid of a line. And I mean, we are technically in one screen here. We could code golf it a lot shorter, but I think I'm happy with this. This is pretty clean, in my opinion. It's pretty straightforward. There's definitely a little bit of cleverness to it, but overall, I guess I'm happy that we went down this route. I'm happy we spent some time on it. I feel better about the solution overall. Less confused anyway.